Have you ever been in an interview where you just did not know what to say or how to say it? Has it happened to you before? I believe we have all been in this situation at some point in our careers. So, in this video, I'm going to share with you what not to say. Seriously, do not say these words in your interview. Now, if you are a woman in leadership or trying to advance in your career, you can use this information not only in your interviews, even though the title of this video specifically is about what not to say in your interviews, but these are words you should try to remove from your vocabulary, even if you are in a business meeting, if you are speaking to stakeholders, or if you're speaking to a board meeting or other colleagues. There are certain words that you just want to avoid saying if you are trying to communicate at that higher level than your peers, which is why I hope that you are subscribed to my channel so that you can learn how to truly elevate yourself as a leader and then elevate how you are communicating so that you can make that big impact on the world. Now, I specifically work with women in leadership that are either at the beginning, the middle, or the end of their journeys, wherever they are. However, I have a lot of people on my YouTube channel that are not in the category of women in leadership. And I appreciate you all for being here. I appreciate the women in leadership for being here and those who are not in that category, because I know that you are deeply passionate about how you are communicating and you just want to learn how to advance yourself. So I'm here to support you on your journey. Now, this is a live video, so there typically is a point in time in the lives where people will join. So just bear with me, because if you're watching this video right now, you are watching the replay. And there'll be a point where people come in. I always say hello to the people that join the lives, interact a bit, and then we'll go into the words that you do not want to say in your interview and you want to try to eliminate from your vocabulary as much as possible. Now, oftentimes when we are in interview settings, it can be stressful. It feels almost like an interrogation. Like someone literally is sitting there with a white light, just asking you questions after questions after questions after questions. And it can become very stressful. It can become very frustrating. And a lot of times it just stresses us out. So I want to say hello, hello, hello to all of you who have joined today. I appreciate you being here today. Let me know what part of the beautiful world you are joining us from today. I want to say hello to Jenny. Hello, Jenny. Hello, hello. Rocky, hello. Hi, Jenny again. Feel free to let me know where you are joining from in the world today. Be happy to say hello to you. This is a really exciting live. I'm going to share with you over 20 years of experience as a C-suite executive, a manager, and a director on what you should not say in an interview. And this is information or statements you should not say, not only in the interview, but you should not say these words in general. If you are trying to project yourself with an executive presence as a leader and you want to show confidence, watch this live, because I'm going to share with you the words you should not say. And if you like this content, this is a great time for you to subscribe to the channel. Feel free to join us. And if you are ready to go to that next level in terms of how you are speaking and communicating so that you speak in a more concise, articulate way, then subscribe. You'll learn a lot here. All right, Asif, I'm sorry, Khan, hello. If I didn't say your name correctly, I'm so sorry. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions as it relates to interviewing. Learn from my over 20 years of experience. I have done literally leaders, hundreds of interviews at this point. I can help you. So the words that you want to avoid saying in an interview are the following words. And this not only interview, this is in your day-to-day interactions, your conversations. You want to try to limit these words. Are you ready? Pen and paper, definitely take a couple of notes. So the first phrase that I would recommend for you not to say in an interview is the following: I don't know. This is probably one of the most famous default phrases that we think of when we really don't know. The reason why you don't want to say some of the words that I'm mentioning to you in this live is because these words will automatically decrease your confidence. Your confidence may be up here, and if you say, I don't know, it goes way down here real fast. So there's certain words that interviewers, hiring managers are looking to hear from you as a candidate. We are wanting to hire the most talented candidate that we can. We want someone that projects confidence. So if you're having a hard time projecting confidence and you're struggling with this and you say, I don't know, I can tell you right now that the managers know that you are not the right candidate for them. So make sure I don't know is a phrase that you do not say in your interview or in your other conversations. There's different ways you can phrase it. So if you want to know that, I can go into that also. A way you can phrase I don't know when you really don't know, because we do not know everything. But a way you can rephrase I don't know, you can say it in a way that shows your expertise, but acknowledges that there is an aspect of whatever the topic is that you may need to have more information on. For example, if there is a subject that someone told me about that I don't know, and that happens, there is a way I would say it. I would say it this way. Instead of saying I don't know, I would talk about what I do know. So if we're talking about a specific topic, a specific project, I would say I have a significant amount of experience in this project that is related to this particular item that you mentioned. There's a lot of information in this particular project to learn. I'm always interested in learning as much as I can, but I have a lot of experience in this project. So I would turn it around to really focus on what do I know and make it seem as if I know what I know, but you're downplaying what you don't know. So you're still saying that, but you have to be very mindful of it. Alrighty, so the next word or next phrase I want you to not say in your interviews includes the following. I'm not sure. So I'm not sure is a way that will completely crash your interview. Try not to say I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Once again, it shows that you are not being confident. You're not showing confidence, and you want your employers to talk and understand that you really know what you're talking about. So let me look in the comments. We have Daniel. Hello, Daniel. Welcome, welcome. Glad you're here today. So Daniel has a question. Okay, Daniel says, can you touch on the abstract hypothetical questions they ask? Okay, I can. If you have had some in the past, let me know, because there's a lot of different ways we can go into hypothetical questions. But if you can give me just a little bit more information in terms of maybe what you've experienced. But to talk about what Daniel's saying while he's responding, there are times when they may ask those very abstract hypothetical questions. Usually, these questions may be similar to your STAR type of questions. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with STAR, they are more of your behavioral-based hypothetical scenario type questions. The STAR means, I think you're a superstar if you're interviewing, but the STAR actually means situational, task, action, result. So that's what STAR means. So you want to give your responses in that type of format. So Daniel, if you're having some of those very hypothetical type questions that people ask, listen to the scenario that they're asking. One of the things I tell my clients in a one-on-one setting is if they ask you a hypothetical question and you literally are not sure of what to say, then your default response should be to buy yourself time. You have to buy yourself time to think. The way you buy yourself time in those type of hypothetical situations, because a lot of times they are kind of out there and they are abstract. So I appreciate you so much for bringing that up, because this is what happens in reality. On this channel, I really talk about real situations and real scenarios that happen, and I appreciate you bringing that up because this really does happen. So buy yourself some time. So the first response I would say, I would ask a clarifying question. If there's something about this abstract hypothetical situation that I don't quite understand, I would ask a follow-up. Can you clarify what you mean by this? Or can you give me an example of what you are referring to? Or something like that. This gives you the opportunity to think in your mind, get those wheels turning and thinking, and think about what it is specifically you want to say while they are rephrasing the question back to you. Those seconds really do matter. And so take that time when you feel as if there's a question you're not sure how to answer it, buy yourself some time. Or you could say, wow, that's a very interesting scenario. I had not thought of it in that way. This is really great. Has this happened often? Anything to buy yourself time, to give you a few moments to just think. Sometimes in interview settings, people feel like they have to automatically say something immediately, right? When someone says a question, you don't have to do this. It's actually a great way to position yourself as an executive and develop your executive presence if you're a bit more controlled in your responses and you think about them very carefully. It says a lot about you as a leader, and it showcases you as that exceptional candidate that I want you to be. Okay, so Daniel said, for example, they asked me once, how would you count the amount of ridges on a quarter? Okay, so that's a very interesting type of question. And yes, that is very abstract, very, very abstract. And it depends on the type of role you're in. I don't know why someone would ask you a question like that, but because you were asked these type of questions, there's not a right or wrong answer. What they're asking for in these questions, and this is more behind the scenes, I'm sure with you, my C-suite executive experience on this, I don't ask questions like that. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't ask, those are that's just too much. But what they're looking for is they're trying to learn, how do you think? How do you think? How do you process complex situations? So when you have those type of, how do you count the amount of ridges on a quarter, they, as abstract as that is, they just want to learn, how does Daniel think? How does Daniel think? How does he process? How does he figure things out? That's all they're looking for. There is no right or wrong answer to that specific type of question. So I want to give you some, I would say, a bit of relief that there's no right or wrong answer for those type of questions. You just have to answer it the best of your ability. How would you count the ridges on a quarter? I mean, you would count the ridges on a quarter. It depends on the kind of role you're applying for too. So let me add a bit of a different perspective to it. So I don't know what industry you're in, but I'm going to give a hypothetical example in terms of an industry, just to maybe go even into more detail on how you could potentially use this very abstract, very complicated question and make it showcase yourself in a really great way. So Daniel's in medical field. So I'm in medical too. So I'm surprised someone asked you a question like that. I'm actually really surprised they asked you a question like that. So, but let's say in a medical field setting. So let me think about this. So someone asked me, how do you count the ridges on a quarter? Okay, if you're in the medical field, then I would basically structure your response to have something to do with the medical field, or something to do with patient care, or something to do with the role that you are applying for. Now, I know it sounds complicated, but let's just pretend that we are going through an interview and I'm asked a question like this. So they asked me a question about counting ridges on a quarter. I work in the medical field also, and I could say something along the lines of, wow, that is a very interesting question. I would buy myself time. I would absolutely buy myself time with this type of question, because this is something that you're not asked every day. I don't know if you've ever been asked that in your life. This is the first time I actually heard a question like that. But I would buy myself time initially, because you have to think of well, how am I going to respond to this question? What are they looking for? But this is a no right or wrong question. What you could potentially say in this situation is that the ridges on a quarter, there's a lot. It's something that we just don't pick up every single day. Sometimes we exchange quarters and we don't really realize how much this quarter can do for us, how much this quarter has a big impact on us. So if I wanted to count the ridges, there's a simple way to do it. I could turn the quarter over and count the ridges over and count the number that I have. However, let's think about it in a different type of way. So the ridges could be something that we just don't pay attention to. And sometimes in the medical field, what are some things that we don't pay attention to? Sometimes we don't pay attention to the patient experience. Sometimes we don't pay attention to what our providers need. Sometimes we don't pay attention to what the staff needs. So similar to the ridges on a quarter, sometimes we pass things along and we go through our everyday processes, but we don't take the time to look and really look at the detail of the ridges of the quarter and see how many are actually there, because this can actually help us to really think about our patient experiences and think about some of those missed opportunities or things that we just don't really think about every single day that may be impacting how we are providing care to our patients or serving our community or something like that. I just completely made that up. I'm going based off of the question. So I answer the question. This is how I would count the ridges of a quarter. I would turn the quarter over and I count every single one of them. But I turned it into my field and what specifically is important for them. So if you're in the medical field, patient care, patient safety, safety for your physicians and your other support team members, your nurses and etc., your administrators is all very important. So I would always, those random questions, say it, but then turn it around to where you are showcasing how intelligent you are. And the way you do that is by talking about something that is relevant to this role that you are in and how you can just tie in a random question like I just did to showcase something that you know or something that is important to you. Because when you think about it, who thinks about the ridges of a quarter? Really, no one does. And literally, we don't think about it. However, this really does happen in the medical field often. There's always things that we miss. There's always things that we just don't pay attention to. And I would use that as an opportunity to phrase that type of response in terms of the quarters we don't pay attention to, but sometimes we don't pay attention to patients. We don't pay attention to our doctors, our nurses, things like that. So I hope that helps you to answer. I hope that helps you to think about it. If you're ever asked a very abstract question like that, answer the question very quickly. So if they ask you a question, just answer as quick as you can because you want to give yourself a bit of time to showcase your expertise. So think about your stories. This is one thing I tell my clients often is to think about your stories, the stories that make you unique. So what are the stories that make Daniel unique? What are the stories that make anybody else unique? What is it? So always have some stories in the back of your mind. And I tell this in my one-on-one session clients, when I work with my clients, but have your stories in the back of your mind. There may be a situation that you can equivocate to rings on a quarter that no one pays attention to. There could be a lot of things that you can do. So answer the question quickly when they're abstract because I want you to answer it really fast because you need to give yourself time to showcase it. Because let me tell you something, Daniel. Most of the time, if somebody was asked a question like that, you know what they would say? The first word, the first phrase I said to do not say in an interview, and they will say, I don't know. That's a very good question to completely stump somebody. And I see in there, you mentioned that it did feel like a trap. Yeah, that sounds like a trap. I mean, it does sound like a trap to me. And I've been on the opposite side as a C-suite executive for a long time. And I've been doing this over 20 years, and that sounds like just a trick question. Like, why would you ask that? But I just want to give you comfort knowing that there's no right or wrong answer to that question. They just want to learn how you think. That's all. And it's just a great opportunity to showcase your expertise. Most people would say, I don't know. I don't know. I just count the rings on the quarter and I just turn it over and count it. Is that an okay response? Sure. That's what most people would do. However, if you are following my channel and subscribe to my channel, you know I want you to communicate at an exceptional level, higher than other people. And so that's the reason why I want you to add some of your expertise to it. That's what will make you stand out. Because most people would say, I don't know. I'm not really sure. I don't know. I just bend it over and I just count the rings on the quarter, the ridges on the quarter. That's it. But the person that actually can answer that question and turn it around to show how intelligent they are, how much they can bring to an organization and their value will automatically stand out in an interview. So I tell this all the time to my clients. People become great by how they communicate. So if you can communicate at that higher level, it will not only help you in the interview setting, but it will also help you as you're transitioning throughout your career to earn more income and to do whatever the amazing things that it is that you want to do in your career by how you're communicating. And that is the main focus of my channel. That's what I do here is I focus on very higher level communication skills because I've been in very friendly situations. I've been in very contentious situations. So I've been in those environments where I've had to communicate at a higher level when interacting with different senior leaders and congressional leaders here in the United States and etc. So I appreciate that question. It was a very good question, by the way, Daniel, and a great way to help other people watching this video learn different strategies on how to answer questions. Another bonus for you, Daniel, for asking this question, because it is very good. So how long you answer a question really does matter. So when you're given those type of responses, try your best for all your responses if you can. Sometimes you can't do it, but try to have your responses completed within 2 minutes to 2 minutes and 30 seconds or so. The reason I said it is because after a certain amount of time, people will start to not listen to what someone is saying when they're interviewing, and you don't want to be that person. Oftentimes, a lot of my clients come to me because they are struggling because they feel like they are rambling in an interview, or they're not being concise, they're not being articulate, and oftentimes this happens because they don't have their stories defined, or they may not understand that there's a certain amount of time you need to condense your response. The clients I work with are very high achieving individuals, and they have a lot of experience, so they want to share everything. But that's the reason why you have to have those stories to define who you are and define what you're about and how you can deliver it in a short amount of time. Now, if you have been in a situation where you're not sure how do you time yourself, how do you even do that, then that's why you reach out to me. Just contact me either on Instagram at Excite Excellence, at LinkedIn at Dr. Jacinta Lamantai, or you can send a comment on YouTube and I'll respond back to you. So if you need some help in terms of fine-tuning that timing of it, that's what I help you with, to develop that internal time clock. So you know when you're speaking in an interview setting, or even in a board meeting, or to your business partners, or in a group, then you know you can kind of feel that you're talking too much, and you know that you need to summarize your thoughts and summarize everything. And this is a tip that I've learned being in Toastmasters for a very long time. I became a distinguished Toastmaster there, and so I've spent the past 20 years of my life public speaking. Like I said, this is what I do. This is my passion. This is what I love. Okay, so Daniel said, I love that advice. Thank you. Absolutely, Daniel. I'm glad it was helpful for you. And if you have any other very complex questions that come up that are abstract questions like that, then let me know. I'd be happy to just be able to provide you with any insight that I can. If there's anything you need help with interviewing wise, salary negotiations, or anything as it relates to, especially in the medical field, because I'm in that field also, then just let me know. I appreciate you mentioning that, because that's a very good question. Okay, Daniel said, very good. I just subbed. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for subscribing. And absolutely, if you have any other topics that come up as you're going through your journey on any of my videos, I spend a lot more time live here on YouTube. I've been live so much that YouTube has noticed I've been live. So I'm a part of their YouTube live streamer research panel, and I'm going to be helping them be able to shape the platform as it relates to live streaming, just because I've been here so much. So my lives are typically Tuesday through Friday. If you have questions, let me know. I have a lot of great content in terms of communicating at a higher level. In my lives, I work with women in leadership, specifically with some of my services, but there's a lot of my subscribers that are not in that category, and I know they're passionate about leadership, enhancing how they communicate, and I welcome them just like I welcome you, and I appreciate you being a subscriber. There's a lot of good information there on my lives, and if you have any questions, just let me know, and if there's any topics that come up for you specifically, then feel free to let me know. If there's something you want to learn more about, learn from my over 20 years of experience dealing with very challenging situations and communicating at that higher level, so that you can fast track yourself into your next role. Alrighty, so we talked about a couple of statements that you don't want to say in an interview. I don't know. I'm not sure. This is another one. Let me think about it. Okay. Now, sometimes, do you need to think about it? Yes, we talked about this with Daniel's question. Yes, you do need to think about it sometimes. But do you need to say that out loud? No, you do not need to say, I need to think about it out loud. This is where you buy yourself time. So this is where you buy yourself some time. You ask a question to bring it back to the interviewer to gain control of the conversation. Many people think that if you are the interviewee, that there is no control. You have no control in the conversation. And I want to empower you and share with you that that is not the case. You can actually set the tone of the conversation as the interviewer when you have developed those higher level communication skills and you have been able to develop your executive presence. And it will actually help you when you're negotiating your salaries, and it will help you when you start your job, because you want to start your job and be that person that everybody is completely amazed by because of how you communicated in your interview. So you need time to think? Yes, you might, but those are words that do not need to come out of your mouth. I need to think. Think means I'm considering it. I'm thinking about it. I'm not quite sure. They're just words you want to try not to say. It may not appear as confident as you need to be in an interview type of setting. So that is a phrase I would say that people default to the most. I don't know. Let me think about it. I'm not sure. Those are the most common words that I see people say all the time in an interview. Now, there's some other things that you do not want to say in an interview, and this is a bit different than your confidence, I would say, words that are going to prevent you from showing that you're really, really confident. So the I don'ts, I'm not sure, those negative words, try not to say those. In an interview setting, you don't want to come across as desperate. And I know this may sound like, why are you saying this? But I have to be real with my audience, just like I tell everybody to. You don't want to appear desperate in an interview. And I know we've all been in situations where you need this job. Like, we all have been in those situations. If somebody says they haven't, then, maybe they have a different type of life. But I think for the majority of us, we've had situations where we're thinking, I really need this job. However, you just don't want to come across as being that person that's just really desperate. And so the way you do that is just to be very measured in your responses and be very, very calm. So before I go into that, Jamito, Mara, hello, welcome, welcome. Hope you're doing well today. Let me know where you're joining from today. And if you have any questions as it relates to interviewing, this is the place for you today. Just let me know and I will give you some really great insight to help you on your journey. So we talked a little bit about being desperate. So you don't want to come across as desperate in an interview. So what does desperate look like in an interview? Desperate will look like in an interview if you say, I really want this job. I really need this job. This is the only job I'm applying for. Something like that. Those are words that come across as desperate. So let's say when they ask you a question, this is a good one. This one will show how desperate you are. If they ask you, how soon can you start? Majority of people are asked this question in an interview. If they say, how soon can you start? And you say, I can start tomorrow. That comes across as desperate. And if you've done that before, that's okay. It's no problem. That's the reason why you're watching this video, so you don't do that again. So it's all right. What you can say in lieu of that, instead of saying, I can start tomorrow, you can say, I have a few things I'm working on right now. I should be able to start within the next week or two. If there's an opportunity for me to start earlier, would that work with your company? So you see how I turned it around? Did it sound like I was desperate? No, it sounded like I had a few things I'm working on, even if I maybe not have anything to work on and I really could start tomorrow. But you're coming across as being more controlled, and you're saying it in such a way to where it doesn't come across as somebody's just needing a job. Because when they see that you need a job like that, I am sharing with you on the back end of things, sometimes that way you present yourself will automatically put you in a different offer category. And I'm talking about money in terms of what they offer you, because they feel like you're desperate and you need this job. You never want to give away your power like that. That's why I would definitely rephrase it in just a different way to sound just more in control and more calm about it. And if you say, is there a possibility for me to start earlier, then it's always a good scenario. So I do this with my clients. I say, this is what we're going to work on, but I always over deliver. And so the same thing in an interview setting. If you can start earlier, then you can potentially start earlier. And that would be good for the company. So just keep that in mind. That's a way that you can address that particular question. Okay, let me go to the chat. So Jamito said, where are you from? I am from the United States here in America. And Daniel said, so how can you balance not seeming desperate and negotiating pay? Ooh, Daniel, this is a very good question. This is one of my favorite questions to even ask. So Daniel has a really good question about negotiating your balance and not seeming desperate when you're doing that. Okay, so let me preface this by, I'll give you some guidance here to think about how to not seem desperate when you're negotiating for pay. But I do also want to say I have some good resources here as it relates to this. I have a video here on my YouTube channel that talks about salary negotiation that will be very helpful too. I go into a lot more detail in terms of how you develop your numbers and etc. And then I also have a salary negotiation masterclass. It is on the products and services page of my website at exciteexcellence.org. That goes, it's a whole masterclass where we talk about nothing but salary negotiations. So to answer your question, it's a lot of it has to do with how you are communicating and the tone of voice that you're using. So when you're talking about money, you're talking about salary, there's a lot of preparatory work, I would say, that happens before you even get to that salary interview. That's really important. So knowing your numbers is important. You have to know, where can Daniel be? Where does Daniel want to be? And where does Daniel want to settle? And what is that number Daniel cannot go below? Like, you cannot go below this number at all. That's why I talk about my YouTube video. I'll go into a little bit more detail with it there. Now, when you're talking about pay, a lot of it comes across with how you're communicating. So just as I mentioned before, when they ask you when you can start and you say, I can start tomorrow, that comes across as desperate. And if you're doing that in a salary negotiation, it comes across as desperate too, and they'll try to lowball your salary. And I'm telling you that just from my experience. This is what managers do sometimes. But you'll have good managers out there like I was, that would try to get people more than what they asked for. So when you're talking, just make sure that you are using a very calm tone of voice. It's not elevated. It's very neutral, just like you're talking about a new invention in the medical field. It should be just the same tone of voice going across. And what you want to present yourself when you're talking about salary, this is what I tell my clients in a one-on-one setting, is ask them for their range first. Oftentimes, people will try to box you in. What they will do for you, either they may ask you at the very beginning of in your first interview, or they may try to put you in a situation where they ask you later, is they'll ask you, well, what salary do you want to make? This, like we talked about Daniel earlier, as a trap. This is a trap. This is definitely a trap, because they are going to try to put you in that box, this salary box I talk about, based on what you have to say. And if you say, I want to have a salary of $55,000, $100,000, $150,000. I don't know what your role is in the medical field, but depending on your role, you may say, hey, this is the salary I want. And they say, oh, well, our position actually will probably be able to offer you lower than that. Now, sometimes people are not prepared for that, which is why I talk about it in my YouTube video, knowing your numbers ahead of time so you already know your responses. And if they give you a response that's lower than what you're looking for, then I would talk about how you can bring a lot of value and experience to the organization. And I would really tie into what the main goal is that they want to have for this role and talk about how you can offer it. I talk about that a little bit more in the masterclass, so it might be something to check out. But that's really the way you don't sound desperate. You have to have a very, very even, very calm tone of voice. Salary negotiations themselves can just, they can really stress you. They can definitely stress you. Probably even more so than the interview, because you just don't know what to do. So if you get yourself kind of caught up emotionally, then you can come across as being desperate. So your tone of voice is really important, not only for the interviewer or the salary, your hiring manager to feel from you, but you too. It actually helps you to calm down and say, okay, I'm going to talk about salary. And this is what we're going to talk about. And just say it in the very calmest way that you can. And when you're talking about your numbers, using that same type of tone of voice, keep it the same. And another trick to salary negotiation, Daniel, is to use silence. This is something I talk about in a program I have. It's called The Real Executive Woman. But we talk about silence and how silence can actually create room for you to enhance your executive presence. So when someone asks you a question about salary and they say, okay, well, what salary are you looking for? You could say, that's a great question. What is the salary range for someone that has my level of expertise? And I tell my clients this all the time. I don't say experience, I say expertise. Why? Because there is something that you are an expert in. There is a skill set that you have that many people do not have. And oftentimes what happens in interview settings is that people forget that they do have some skill set. They do have some experience that will be different than everybody else. And so you want to use that as leverage when you're doing a salary negotiation, because you want to frame it as you need them just as much as they need you. You have a lot to offer, you have a lot to bring. And so these are strategies that can help you not seem desperate, because you're reflecting back a question and you're comfortable with silence. Believe it or not, some hiring managers are not comfortable with silence. They're not. They'll kind of fumble a bit and they'll say, oh, well, I don't know. Like they're caught off guard. And that's what I teach my clients to do, is to be a bit more executive-like in terms of how they're communicating, because this is the way you're able to influence a conversation. Not necessarily talking about your personal business in a salary negotiation is important. What I see people do oftentimes when they're in a salary negotiation, and maybe it's not going the way that, let's say they're not looking for it to go in this direction, they may come across and start talking about personal stuff. So they may say, something happened to my parents, or something's going on here and something's going on there. They'll start to bring up topics that are not critically important to a salary negotiation, that are critically important to them. Now, is there anything wrong with talking about these topics? No, there's not. You need to talk about them, but not in an interview, and definitely not in a salary negotiation. They don't need to know all of your personal business. And there's some things that maybe are relevant that need to be known. But when you're trying to negotiate a salary, you have to basically present this individual with the very best version of Daniel, if that makes sense. And you want to showcase that. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to talk about your personal business. I just see people do this a lot in salary negotiations when they're desperate. They'll say, well, I just got another car, or my car just died. And I've heard all of this. My car just died. My animal just died. I got to take care of my mom. I got to take care of this. I got to take care of that. And so I need this type of salary. And then what happens is, when you say I need means what? I need it. That means there's a certain level of desperation to it, and your hiring manager will pick up on it and they will run with it, and they will give you whatever the low salary is that they're going to give you. Now, as I mentioned, majority of hiring managers will give you and will lowball you on your salary. I'm saying this as a C-suite, former C-suite. Yeah, this is exactly what they do. But if you position yourself in a way where that doesn't happen, if you watch the video here on YouTube that's free, and then my masterclass online that talks more about salary negotiations, it'll put you in a good position to not have to do that. All right, so Daniel said, thank you. It's definitely the point. Oh, Daniel said, I hate that question. Yes, I know. People will try. That's a trap. That's a trap, just like the trap question we talked about with the ridges on the corner and how do you count them. It's a trap. It's just a complete trap. But the good thing is you turn that trap around so that you're not caught in the trap. They may be caught in the trap, especially if you bring on silence when you ask specifically about salary negotiations and a specific what their range is for a position. Sometimes it throws people off. So you just have to be prepared for the response that might become uncomfortable, and you have to observe how they are communicating from there. I go into observation a lot on my lives. This is very, very important to move forward and communicate at that higher level. Daniel said, thank you. It's definitely the point where I get screwed the most. I usually just accept the first offer. Yes, it happens, but that's why you're subscribed to my channel, so this does not happen again. So we want to make sure this does not happen ever again. And sometimes people, they will give you the first offer, and a lot of people accept it. And sometimes it just depends on what's going on with you personally. As I mentioned before, we've all been in situations where you need a job. And I'm just being quite honest and real with you all as I am. Everybody's been in situations like that. I've been in situations like that in the past also. And you want to try to come into those salary negotiations and those offers prepared in advance, similar to an interview, but you have to prepare your numbers. So definitely check out the YouTube video I talk about preparing your numbers in terms of where you need to be. Have your numbers ready in your mind so that you know if the first offer they give you, then you know this first offer is too low for me. I can't do it. I can't make it. I'm not going to be able to take this first offer. So you know that immediately going in. So as soon as you hear, let's say if your ideal number in terms of where you are, and I'm giving it away a little bit on my actual video, but if your ideal number you want to make salary wise is like $150,000, you know that's where you ideally need to be. but your bare minimum number that you're going to be willing to accept is 140,000, and they say, well, guess what, Daniel? This position starts off at $115,000, then you automatically know immediately this isn't going to work. And you could say, what other offers or what other specific type of incentives are available for this type of role with my level of expertise? Like, I would always deflect back and see, well, if your salary is this low, is this commission based? Is this production based? Am I getting some type of match in my 401k? I mean, what other incentives are they going to give you to have you at a lower salary like that? And is it worth it? Because the salary, the offer phase, it's just as much as you finding information about them as it is them finding information about you. You want to make sure that, as you mentioned, that you're not being placed in a situation where you're accepting the first offer. Just have a conversation. The key is just having a conversation and really presenting yourself as that person that has a tremendous amount of value to add. I can tell that you do because of the way you're communicating here. So I know you're very, very intelligent and you got a lot of information you're trying to share. So just make sure you're just having that conversation and just know your numbers in advance, and then just know and take some time. This is a bit outside of, this is what I do in executive coaching, but take some time whenever you have your next interview, Daniel, if you have one coming up, and take a moment and do what I tell my clients to do in a one-on-one session. I have them literally write down the top 3 amazing things they have done. What are the big accomplishments, the big wins, the huge impact that you have made on an organization in your role? Maybe you started a new project. Maybe you reduced a particular medical error. It could be a lot of other things, especially in medical. There's tons of things you could do. So think about what are those top 3 accomplishments that you have done in your role, and keep those at the forefront of your mind when you're applying for positions. So when you're at that phase where you're ready to jump into salary negotiations and you're ready to talk more about it and you don't want to accept that first offer, make yourself appear as if that person that will be a tremendous benefit to the organization. So you always want to bring in, what are they looking for? What are the pain points they talked about in an interview? And bring those into the salary negotiation. So example, if someone said, our organization is doing very poorly on our patient experience. We have our patients leaving us 1 stars Google review. They're actually telling us that they would leave us 0 stars if they could, but Google will not allow them. We are having a really hard time with our patient experience. And this is something you find out in the interview. So find out what their pain points are as an organization. When it comes to salary negotiation, what I would say in this case, and this is just simply an example to give you something to think about, I would say, well, I appreciate that offer. I have found that I will be able to add a tremendous amount of value to the patient experience. These are some very significant wins that I've done with an organization. I always bring up anything you've done that's been great. So this is something that I would always have ready in your mind to talk about at all times. So think of just the top 3, Daniel. Just the top 3 things that you have done that have been amazing in your career, that you have done a huge impact, that have made a big impact on everyone else. And just make sure that you talk about those in the forefront of your mind all the time, especially in your salary negotiations. And with all of that coming together, communicating in a very calm voice and being able to have a conversation, know your numbers coming in, and just realize that you are amazing. You have a lot of assets. You have a lot of value you can bring to an organization. It helps you to mentally start to put everything together so that you don't feel like you have to accept that first offer. You start to understand that, hey, I've done a lot and I've done a lot. I have a lot of value. I will help you in this way. So how can you help me and how can we work together? So that's what I would recommend. I know it happens a lot when people accept the first offer. Sometimes you accept the first offer because you might be in a situation where you need the job, or it may be the only position you have. Still, just try your best to put that best version of yourself out there. And you know that there's a lot of things you want to accomplish in your life and be in a whole another place. So that's a really good thing to think about. Okay, so let's see. We have Zuhaib. I'm sorry if I said your name incorrectly. Ali. Okay, so welcome. Glad you're here today. And I appreciate you being here today. So we've talked about some really great information in terms of like how you can avoid saying certain words in your interviews. There's certain phrases you don't want to say. Had some really good conversations with Daniel with some really great scenarios. If you're just joining, definitely check out the replay. This is what I talk about on my channel, so feel free to subscribe if this information was helpful to you, and ask me any questions. I'll be able to provide you with some support. And if you have a question that you are not sure how to answer it, let me know and I will record a video just for you. I will record a video for you. Just let me know and I will put something together and help you on your journey. Okay, Daniel said, I appreciate the insight. I will definitely use this info in my next interview. Yes, absolutely. And I know you subscribe and I appreciate that. I have several videos here that talk about interviewing and etc. And there's a lot of information there. I have 2 master classes on my website one is interview preparation, is a good interview. I've gotten a lot of feedback, even from my clients that actually help with interviewing. They actually like that interviewing masterclass. Also in the salary negotiation. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, sorry, my audio went out. It does this every once in a while on YouTube Live. But yes, so definitely have information on my website. There's an interview preparation masterclass and a salary negotiation masterclass that is very helpful, that will give you a lot more insight too. And let me see what else we have on here before I finish the live today. Okay, Daniel said, you need more viewers. Oh, thank you. Well, share it to your colleagues and friends. And as I mentioned, I work with women in leadership, but on YouTube, I have so many people that are subscribed that are not in that category, but I'm still here to support you because I know that you care about what you're trying to do, and I really want to be a part of your journey to help you elevate and communicate at that higher level than your peers. So yes, your information is very worthwhile. People are missing out. I agree. Yes, and I do this live all the time. So if you see a topic and you are interested and you have some questions, just hop on if you have time, and if you don't, then feel free to just put something in the comments and I'll do a video for you. But I appreciate that. And it'll get out there. I mean, things are going really well viewers wise because YouTube is noticing I'm doing so many lives. So it's just a matter of time. It'll get out to more people. So I'm very patient, but I do want to help as many people as I can because I know when I was starting my transition as a professional, I didn't have a lot of professionals in my inner circle, I would say, as a student. And I didn't really see that until I actually went into dental school, is where I started to get a little bit more. And I wish that I would have had more mentors or people to guide me and tell me what to do, or not tell me what to do, but kind of at least give me some insight professionally as to what I should do to manage things. Because I've dealt with so many contentious situations. I'm typically the person that people call when there's like fire crisis that is going on, and that's just me. But I've learned a lot over the years, and so I want to make sure I'm helping people on their journey to manage those very complex situations, controlling your emotions under pressure, communicating with your teams under pressure, how to negotiate, all of those type of communication challenges that we face that a lot of people don't talk about on YouTube because they may be talking about theory or fluff, or they may be talking on a perspective of helping people that have been leaders, but they haven't actually been in the fire. They haven't been in the trenches. They haven't been in those situations where they've had to deal with serious issues immediately. And so you'll get the perspective of people that have worked with other leaders, but they haven't actually been in that C-suite, that very hot seat, I would say, role. So absolutely, I appreciate you being here and I appreciate you subscribing. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. I'm here to help you, especially since you're in the medical field. Just let me know if you have any questions, especially as it relates to interviewing or anything else. I've been in the healthcare field for over 20 years now. And so I've seen a lot, done a lot, and I'd be happy to help you any way that I can on my journey. Just leave me a message. You can follow me at Excite Excellence on Instagram or Dr. Jacinta Lamantine on LinkedIn, or just leave me a comment here. All right. Daniel said, thank you so much. Good luck. Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here and being present. I appreciate everyone for joining tonight and giving a thumbs up if you like this information, and feel free to share it with a colleague or a friend, and just let them know that there's some support and resources out there. I want you all to do very well in your career, and you will. We just have to help you communicate at that higher level. So I will see you all in the next live. I hope you have an amazing day, and thank you so much for your engagement today, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now.